Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Back to Ashes. My name is Phoenix. To the elites, thank you so much for your love, dedication, and devotion to the channel and myself. The feelings are reciprocated. It's been a long time since I've done one of these videos, but here we are. So, if you are new to the channel, please note that I am not AI. I am a real guy behind this microphone. I record my own videos, I edit them, and I upload these for your listening pleasure. So, if you like supporting real content creators that do not use AI, please like, comment, and even hype the video. If you like it so much, please go ahead and share with your friends and family. If you'd like to join the Back to Ashes team, go ahead and subscribe and make sure your notification bell is set to all. That way you are reminded of every time I upload a video. With that being said, it is now time to settle down and get spooky. Grab your favorite snack, cuddle up, turn everything down, turn the lights off, turn them on, whatever it is you need to do to get comfortable. Let's dive into these fictional Bliss stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. Right after the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. Store closing protocol. If you remain inside after 10 p.m. Attention shoppers, the time is currently 9:50 p.m. The store will close in 10 minutes. Kindly finalize your purchases and head to the registers. Upon completion, please leave using any ground floor exit. Should you have misplaced any items during your visit, our customer service counter on the ground floor will assist with any lost and found claims starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you for your understanding. Good evening again, valued customers. This is a final reminder. Closing is 5 minutes away. All emergency exits have been secured except the south entrance on the ground level. Please move directly to the nearest open checkout lane and exit solely via the south entrance. To anyone still present inside the building, proceed to the closest exit at once. I repeat, go to the nearest exit right now. For your personal well-being and safety, you should already be walking toward an exit. Do not turn back into the shopping areas or deeper sections of the store. 1 minute remains until official close. Evacuate without delay. All illumination in public entrances will soon be deactivated. The premises will no longer accept customers. The time is now 10 p.m. Regular business hours has concluded for the day. Every standard exit is now secured and locked. If this voice is reaching you, you did not leave in time and are presently sealed inside. Stay calm and obey every directive given in this message without deviation. Do not attempt to phone emergency services or reach anyone beyond these walls. No cellular or wireless sign can penetrate the exterior at this hour. We appreciate your compliance. Important. Every staff member has already departed. No employees, security personnel, or other shoppers should be inside the building. If you detect any person who identifies themselves as store personnel, another customer, a guard, or anyone else, do not speak. Do not approach, and do not interact under any circumstances. This message is audible throughout all levels, except basement level 1. Ensure you are standing in an area where the broadcast is clearly audible. From this moment forward, follow these restricted safety directions precisely. Go immediately to the nearest elevator bank. While en route, keep your eyes averted from glass partitions, changing room mirrors, polished metal panels, or any reflective surface. Upon reaching the elevator area, press the call button for floor 4 and stand directly in front of the doors, facing them until they open. Watch the floor indicator closely. Mentally count every floor number as it changes. The car should travel straight to floor 4 without pausing or opening on intermediate levels. Should the elevator halt on floor 3 and you hear the arrival chime, instantly pivot so your back is toward the doors and shut your eyes tightly. If anything enters the car, keep your eyes closed. Maintain silence and very slowly shuffle backward until you have crossed completely out of the elevator. Do not look up. Do not speak. Do not respond to voices. Remain motionless with eyes closed until the doors seal shut and the elevator moves away. Only then may you cautiously step forward to where the doors had been. Keep your eyes closed the entire time. When you are certain the car has returned and the doors have parted again, enter quickly, face the panel, press 4, and only open your eyes after the doors have fully closed behind you. The elevator will then proceed normally to floor 4. Well done! In the unlikely event the car suddenly drops at high speed without input and the display indicates B1 or any sublevel, bite completely through your tongue before the doors separate. We are deeply sorry. This remains the final autonomous choice available to you. Upon reaching floor 4 and the doors parting, step out promptly. Do not hesitate in the threshold. You are now standing in the 4th floor, furniture showroom, elevator, vestibule. Expect flickering or dim lighting and the complete absence of background music or other footsteps. Keep your eyes fixed on the floor, focusing only on a spot roughly 2 paces ahead of your shoes. Do not raise your gaze to signs, cameras, light fixtures, or anything above waist height. Proceed straight along the primary corridor until it terminates. Then make a right turn. Continue forward to the following intersection and turn right once more. Following the second right turn, the shelving should gradually thin out and the space will feel noticeably more open. Keep moving forward until your shoes meet an obstruction, either cold metal or a solid barrier, and you can advance no further. Halt immediately. Place both hands over your eyes, leaving only a thin slit between your fingers. Very slowly lift your head and peer straight forward through the narrow opening. You should observe exactly 1 mirror containing only your own reflection. There must be no extra silhouettes, creatures, or reflections that fail to mirror your movements precisely. Gently close your eyes again. Without changing the direction your body faces, rotate 180 degrees in place so you now have your back to the mirror. Then, very slowly, raise your head and open your eyes to read the overhead sign directly in front of you. If the sign reads, Mirror Department, congratulations, you are on the correct path to exit safely. Follow the arrow or direction indicated beneath the sign and continue until this voice can no longer be heard. After tonight's event conclude, the entire experience will fade as though it never took place. At some point in the future, you may encounter a written or recorded version of these instructions and feel a fleeting dreamlike strangeness. This reaction is expected and harmless. If the sign reads anything other than Mirror Department, most critically if it reads Window Department or Glass Department, immediately lower your gaze, spin around, and sprint back toward the elevator along the exact route you just traveled. Do not pause. Do not glance behind you. Do not attempt to locate or interpret any sounds you may hear. We can no longer guarantee your safety once you are in that zone. This concludes the after closing emergency protocol. We wish you the very best of fortune. Past midnight in the quiet town of Isaacville, the November cold had chased most people indoors. Devin Cowell cruised slowly along Locust in his battered pickup, a half-empty beer can resting between his thighs, eyes scanning the sparse sidewalks for opportunity. Under the pale cons of a street lamp outside Sud's Bar and Grill stood a lone figure, a young blonde woman in a thin white cardigan, arms wrapped tight around herself against the wind. Early 20s, maybe. Devin's mouth curved into a slow, predatory smile. He eased the truck to the curb directly in front of her and cranked down the passenger window. "Hey," he called, voice warm and easy. "You okay out here? Need a lift somewhere? It's freezing." She glanced over, eyes distant. "My sister was supposed to pick me up. She never came." "Climb in then," he said, patting the seat. "Warmer in here, and I've got cold ones if you're thirsty." He offered the kind of reassuring grin that had worked many times before. Strong jaw, clear blue eyes, neatly combed hair. The sort of face people instinctively trusted. After a moment's hesitation, she crossed the few steps and pulled herself up into the cab. "Got her." "Buckle up," he told her pleasantly. "I'm big on safety." The seatbelt clicked home, the specially modified one that only he could unfasten. He drained the last of his beer and flicked the can into the back. "Where to?" "East side of town," she answered quietly. "Past the dam." Devin pulled away from the curb and pointed the truck east. "Name's Devin," he said casually. No harm in sharing. Names because irrelevant soon enough. His first kill had been messy, almost botched. Everyone since had been cleaner, more controlled. This would be number 12, his first since crossing into Illinois, moving steadily northward. "I'm Mary," she said. "Mary Cost." "Pretty name for a pretty girl," he replied, letting his right hand drift over to rest on her thigh, giving a slight squeeze. She tensed and edged toward the door. "Still chilly?" he asked, withdrawing his hand to crank up the heat instead. "Turn left at the next road," she said, pointing. He drove straight past the intersection without slowing. Mary went quiet, watching him. After a few miles, Devin reached inside his jacket and drew out an automatic pistol. Magazine empty, of course. He preferred quieter methods. Firearms were crude and loud, but the shape of one usually guaranteed obedience. "Mary," he said calmly. "Stay quiet. Do what I tell you, and you won't get hurt. Understand?" She gave no reply. They wound deeper into the countryside along neglected gravel roads until he veered onto a reddish field lane used only during planting and harvest seasons. The truck jolted to a stop beside a small weathered camper, engine off. Devin stepped out, circled around, opened her door, and unlatched the trick belt. "Out. Walk straight to the camper. Don't look back." She obeyed without protest. He holstered the useless pistol and drew the long hunting knife from his belt instead. This was the part he savored. The quick slash, the warm spill, the private rituals afterwards. He would keep her scalp, like the others, running his fingers through the soft strands long after the rest was scattered. Coming up behind her in the dark, he wrapped one arm around her shoulders and drew the blade sharply across her throat. But No arterial spray followed. No collapsing body. Instead, a strange sooty ash poured from the wound like smoke from damp wood. Mary turned. Her eyes were no longer blue. Twin glossy black stones stared back at him. She opened her mouth and released a piercing, unearthly wail that sliced through the night. Then, both hands clamped onto the sides of his face. The touch burned, bitter, searing cold that ate into skin and bone. Devon's mind fractured in an instant. Every memory, every secret pleasure, every careful plan dissolved into someone else's unbearable sorrow. Mary Cost had once been alive, grieving. Her older sister, Elise, lived down in Missouri near the Arkansas line and had planned to move back to Isaacville to be close again. Then, the state police called. Elise's remains had been discovered. Signs pointed to a serial predator still hunting. The news hollowed Mary out. She drank to forget. 2 months later, after closing time at Suds, she walked deliberately into the path of an oncoming car. Death was instant. Now that same despair flooded Devon's skull. Relentless, suffocating grief layered over physical agony. He crumpled to the frozen dirt and lay staring upward at the indifferent stars, unable to move. By the time anyone found him days later, he had frozen solid. The skin of his cheeks and jaws still bore the clear, blackened imprints of 2 small hands. A weathered farmhouse perched alone atop a gentle rise, surrounded by empty fields and silence. At the foot of the long gravel drive idled a dark sedan, lights extinguished. Inside, the hired killer named Jackson Lampert drew deeply in his final cigarette, the ember glowing briefly in the night. The contract had pulled him farther from urban streets than any before, over 3.5 hours south of the city. The nearest settlement, barely worth a name, was West Knob, a speck of 600 souls marked by a faded road sign. Night had fallen completely. A low amber moon climbed the eastern sky. Time to move. Jackson crushed the cigarette into the ashtray, tugged on a pair of blue nitrile gloves, and retrieved the Glock tucked under the driver's seat. He had first encountered his employer a month earlier at Talbot's Bar and Grill in Chicago. Jackson was the kind of specialist reach only through layers of intermediaries, and Dorothy Naughton had navigated them all. In their initial conversation, she delivered the line he heard most often: "Money is no object." That meeting was simply to size her up and confirm the arrangement felt solid. The following day, they convened at the nondescript Dante's Motel in Aurora. Dorothy arrived ready. She handed over half the quoted fee in cash, the standard split. Advance payment now, balance after completion. Along with the money came clear photographs of her husband, images of their rural home, precise handwritten directions from the city to the isolated property, a thorough floor plan, notes on where her husband usually was at night, and the exact window of time she wanted the job carried out. Her thoroughness struck him as almost practiced. She had even arranged an airtight alibi. She would be miles away, staying with her elderly mother in the Chicago suburbs. Jackson was instructed to stage everything as a burglary that had turned deadly. He promised her it would be simple. As they parted, she added quietly, "I truly love my husband, but he's terribly ill, beyond help. This is kinder in the end." Jackson kept his expression neutral. Everyone has their story, he thought. Clients always needed some justification to quiet their guilt. He never cared what it was. His role was execution, not therapy. He left the car and started up the driveway. A lifelong urban dweller, Jackson found the utter solitude unnerving. The closest neighbor lay more than 2 miles distant, and during the entire time he had waited, no headlights had swept the entire rural highway. Reaching the porch, he tested the front door. Unlocked, exactly as promised. Inside, the house was easy to navigate, even without turning on lights. Dorothy's descriptions had been meticulous, almost photographic. For someone who claimed wealth was irrelevant, the furnishings were surprisingly sparse, almost barren. Yet the cash had been genuine, no question. The target was exposed upstairs in the master bedroom. Jackson approached the staircase and climbed slowly, each bare wood step placed with precision to avoid creaks. Halfway up, the atmosphere thickened. A heavy animal odor rolled over him, part gym locker, part kennel. At the landing, he heard it. Deep, ragged breathing issuing from the bedroom on the right. He stepped inside with practiced calm. Moonlight poured through the uncovered windows, bathing the space in silver. There lay Mr. Naughton, uncovered and unclothed on the bed. The man gave no warning. He noticed the intruder. Jackson might as well have been a ghost. Sweat gleamed on Naughton's skin in the lunar glow. His chest heaved with difficulty. His eyes darted wildly, unfocused, lost in delirium. Jackson studied him with clinical detachment. No sympathy stirred. "Good evening, Mr. Naughton," he said evenly. "Your wife sends her regards." He leveled the pistol and squeezed off 2 rounds, into the head, followed by one to the torso. Naughton went limp. Blood spread dark across the bedding. For good measure, Jackson fired 3 more shots into the wall above the headboard. Random. Panic pattern to sell the robbery story. Job complete. Clean. Or so it seemed. As Jackson turned toward the door, an unthinkable sound erupted. A piercing scream from the supposedly dead man. He spun back, weapon raised. Naughton thrashed, foam fleeking his lips, then rolled off the mattress and crashed to the floor. On hands and knees, he howled, body shaking violently. Color drained from Jackson's face. He stared in frozen horror as the skin along Naughton's back tore open from neck to tailbone, splitting like overstuffed fabric. Adrenaline surged. Jackson fired every remaining round. Bullets struck true, yet the figure refused to collapse. Beneath the shredded skin emerged coarse, blood-soaked fur. That was enough. Jackson bolted for the doorway, lunged toward the stairs, and missed his footing. He pitched forward, tumbling down the steep flight. At the bottom, his leg folded wrong. A sharp crack echoed, followed by searing pain. Jagged bone pierced through skin below the knee. Nausea hit. The hallway tilted. From above came a deep, rumbling growl. Jackson lifted his gaze, Descending the stairs on all fours was something enormous. Once human, now monstrous. Thick saliva dripped from its jaws. Claws scraped wood with every deliberate step. Halfway down, it sprang. No one heard Jackson Lampert's final cries as the creature ripped into him and fed. No one would search for a man who existed only in whispers between contacts. Dorothy Naughton cherished her husband deeply. Even though his condition forced her to leave the house each full moon, she always arranged for him to have ample fresh meat while she was gone visiting her mother. Cemetery officially closed, sundown to sunup. Violators will be prosecuted. The rusted sign hung askew on the wire fencing in front of the graveyard. Its letters were the color of old blood. Arnold stared at the sign but wasn't really reading it. His thoughts were a million miles away. Jen and Alice were already inside reading epitaphs. Peak Cemetery was a small, isolated graveyard perched atop Horseman Hill and completely surrounded by the dense trees that covered the entire hillside. It was the last remaining vestige of what had once been the town of Cold Creek in the early 1800s, and it had become the subject of countless local ghost stories and strange tales. Most of the headstones were old and leaning, with vines crawling up them like snakes. Others were broken or had fallen over completely, toppled by time or, in some cases, by teenagers with nothing better to do. Arnold had never liked the place. It had been Greg's idea to come. "Are you coming, Arnie?" Greg asked his younger brother as he lifted the latch on the cemetery gate. "Are you sure we won't get caught? I mean, I hear the police patrol up here all the time," Arnold said, following his brother through the gate. This again? Come on, I told you 100 times. The cops aren't going to drive all the way up here every night. It's too far out of the way. They might come around Halloween or on weekends, but that's about it." All right. I guess," Arnold muttered. "We're here to spook the girls," Greg whispered, his voice carrying a note of annoyance. "Do you think we can do that in broad daylight?" I guess not." Arnold didn't say much more as he followed his brother through the graveyard toward the girls. He didn't bring up how the sign on the fence was less than 5 years old. He didn't mention the rumor he'd heard, that the sign had been put up after someone discovered a dead dog under the big tree in the middle of the cemetery. According to the story, the dog had been circled by black candles, burned down to the stubs, and drained of its blood. Arnold glanced across the graveyard at the big tree. It was ugly and gnarled, and something about it made his blood run cold. Its bark looked black in the dying light. Judging by its size, its vast network of unseen roots must have trespassed into the many coffins beneath the soil, drawing whatever nutrients it could from the dead, like some unholy ghoul. They walked over to Jen and Alice, who were examining a headstone that had turned a sickly yellow-green with lichen. Greg lit a cigarette and stared down at the stone for a moment before speaking. "This one's pretty old," Jen said. "It's hard to read, but it looks like he died in 1845. That means he was only 23. "That's right," Greg replied. "Trevor Kirkwood." He read the name aloud, ashed a cigarette, and continued. "Weird story, that one." Arnold wasn't paying attention. He stood quietly with his hands in his pockets, staring at the big, ugly tree less than 10 yards away. up a small incline. If people really did practice occult rituals here, he could understand why that thing might serve as some kind of sick idol. It felt as though the tree was staring back at the four of them just as intently as he stared at it. He broke his gaze and checked his watch. 7:42. What remained of daylight would soon vanish. Arnold's stomach knotted, and a shiver ran through him. He wanted to leave. He hadn't wanted to come here in the first place. It was stupid. It was senseless. If Greg wanted to scare the girls, why not just show them a scary movie from the comfort and, more importantly, the safety of home? Arnold suddenly realized Greg had said something to him. "What?" he asked, his voice distant. "I said, do you remember the story of Trevor Kirkwood?" "No, not really," Arnold replied. He noticed the annoyed glance Greg shot him. "It's been a while since I heard it," he added, hoping the excuse would appease his brother. It seemed to work. Greg began to weave his tale and Arnold zoned out again. He barely noticed Alice moving closer to him as Greg embellished the story. Arnold's attention was fixed on the growing darkness that seemed to spread not from the sunless sky, but from the wretched tree itself. He wasn't sure how long Greg had been spinning his tale about a man neither of them had ever truly heard of, but his stomach turned to ice when he saw his brother point toward the tree with the two fingers holding his Marlboro. "That's where they found it," Greg said. "It was the only trace of him." "Found what?" Alice asked. "His face," Greg replied, his expression deadly serious. "It was nailed to that tree, mouth open in a silent scream. 3 nails hammered all the way down to their heads. They say that on a full moon night, like tonight, if you put your hands on the trunk where it was nailed, you can feel the cold, dead flesh of Trevor Kirkwood's face." One of the girls let out a small gasp. Arnold couldn't tell which one, and at that point, he didn't care. He just wanted to leave. "Let's find out if the story is true," Greg said with a smile. "Greg, I think we should probably just go. Let's do some country cruising or something instead." "Would you stop it, Arnie? What's your problem? Why do you have to be such a wet blanket all the time? You're acting like a simp." Greg's frustration was genuine, and his words left an awkward tension hanging in the air like cold, damp fog. Alice cleared her throat and looked Arnold in the eyes. "Come on, Arnie." It was the first time she called him that. "Don't let me go up there without you." She smiled and took his hand. This was only his second date with Alice, but he had liked her for a long time and didn't want an irrational fear to ruin whatever chance he might have. Arnold nodded. It was all he could manage. His tongue felt like sandpaper. Greg stared at him as he took another drag from his cigarette. The glowing end illuminated his face, and for a moment, Arnold thought his brother's eyes appeared to glow red in the dark. Let's get it over with then," Arnold finally said. The four of them started up the small hill toward the tree. Arnold didn't let go of Alice's hand, and as they drew nearer, his grip tightened. He didn't know why he was so afraid. The story about the dog was probably no truer than Greg's yarn about Kirkwood's face nailed to the tree. But it wasn't the dog story that bothered him. It was the feeling he had since they first got out of their car. The unshakable sense that they weren't alone. even though there was no sign of another living soul. It was the feeling of being watched in the gloom of late dusk. And it was that tree. Something cruel and almost evil about it. A new thought entered his mind, one that filled him with existential dread. What if all the stories were true? What if that tree could somehow speak through silent whispers in the night air, telling of all the horrible things that had happened to those buried beneath it, the things it had fed on, and the sacrifices made to it, like radio waves carried on the wind? At the thought, Arnold's legs felt like foam rubber, ready to collapse. "Can you see the nails?" Jen asked Greg. "No, it happened so long ago that the tree grew around them, I'd imagine," Greg answered. When the four reached the tree, daylight had fully passed, and thick, gloomy clouds buried the moon. They stood quietly for a few moments until Jen asked, "Where was it hung?" "I'm not too sure," Greg said. "Let's each take a side." Arnold wanted to protest again, but knew it would do no good. He let go of Alice's hand as she positioned herself on the north side of the tree. Greg moved to the east side, Jen to the south, opposite Alice. Arnold stayed where he was, his mind drowning in thoughts of animal sacrifice, faceless horrors, and other terrors he hadn't known his imagination could conjure. "You're being silly," he told himself. "Just go up to the tree, touch the damn thing, and let Greg yell, 'Boo,' or whatever he has planned." "Let's reach out and touch the tree at the same time," Greg said. He flicked his cigarette away and cleared his throat. "We'll do it on the count of 3. 1. Both girls let out nervous giggles as they raised their hands toward the bole of the tree. Arnold trembled. Though frozen to the core, beads of sweat formed on his brow. 2. Arnold thought he heard something behind him. The cemetery gate squeaking open. Alice and Jen turned their heads in that direction. "Did you guys hear something?" Alice whispered. "I did," Arnold answered immediately. "Me too," Jen said. Even Greg called into the darkness. "Hello? Is somebody there?" Silence answered. "Meh, probably just a squirrel or something running along the fence," he said, after a few more moments of uneasy quiet. Arnold knew his brother well enough to hear the uncertainty in his voice. Neither Jen nor Alice seemed to notice, but Arnold caught the uneasy tone. He glanced over his shoulder, but saw only the black, shadowy shapes of headstones and scraggly yucca bushes. He looked back at Alice, who was also staring in the direction of the sound. "Okay, on the count of 3, Greg called from behind the vile tree. 1, 2, 3. At 7:23 the next morning, a pickup truck bearing the sign, "Watson's Lawn Care," climbed the north side of Horseman Hill along its only road. It towed a flatbed trailer loaded with a riding mower, a push mower, gas-powered trimmers, fuel cans, and other tools of the trade. With every jolt, the trailer creaked, squeaked, and rattled as the beat-up Ford made its way to the top. Inside the cab, John Fogarty belted out Tombstone Shadow on the radio. The driver, Dick Watson, reached over and opened the small cooler on the passenger seat. Yesterday's ice had melted into cool water. He grabbed a can of Stag. Keeping one eye on the winding road, cracked it open with one hand and turned onto the gravel lane that led through a tunnel of trees down to the cemetery. Halfway down the lane, where it sloped back downward. He spotted a small four-door sedan parked in front of the gate. Early morning visitors were uncommon but not unheard of, so Dick thought little of it. He reached the end of the lane, let the song finish, and finished his beer before stepping out to begin the day's work. He crushed the can and tossed it in the back of his truck bed to join the others. The grass was still too wet to mow, so he pulled out his trimmer and started weeding the edges along the gate and in front of the tombstones. He soon forgot about the parked car and its absent owner. He had been working just over half an hour when he caught sight of the tree. At first, his mind couldn't process what he was seeing. After a moment of focus, the realization hit him like a blow. His stomach lurched, his legs buckled, and he fell backward. His head narrowly missed a marble slab and slammed against the ground with a heavy thud. Unconsciousness claimed him. At each cardinal point around the trunk of that awful tree were 4 bloody faces, sliced thin as bacon and held in place by iron nails. We mourn for you, all of humankind. This day may mark the end for most of you. Should you live through it, the horsemen will consider you worthy of some small measure of regard. Heed these guidelines carefully if you wish to endure. The day the 4 ride. The first, famine. He is driven by an endless, gnawing emptiness. He wields a corroded, rusty blade to channel his power. Watch for these warning signs. Food spoiling unnaturally fast, an overwhelming, insatiable hunger or thirst. If either appears, act as follows. 1A. Rotting food signals his approach. The more rapid and severe the decay, the nearer he is. Pray it never reaches the point where matter simply vanishes. That means his gaze has fallen upon you. 1B. If a ravenous hunger or thirst suddenly grips you, you've likely breathed in or swallowed traces of his corruption. Resist eating or drinking. The craving will torment you for roughly an hour and cannot be quenched. The second, war. He is clad in armor forged to slay even divinities, and his sword is unmatched. Avoid him at all costs. He will demand a duel, should he issue the challenge. 2A. If his voice is calm and measured, accept the fight. This is not to the death. Allow yourself to be disarmed swiftly, and he will depart without further harm. Should you somehow disarm him instead, he will bestow the blessing of war, a surge of unbreakable resolve and superhuman strength. 2B. If his tone is dark and threatening, it is a duel to the death. Battle continues until one can no longer stand. Your best hope is to flee or conceal yourself immediately. These deadly contests last no longer than 10 minutes. Survive that span unharmed, and he will not pursue you again today, though no blessing will be granted. The third, plague. His presence is horrifying, yet not the most lethal. If you hear labored breathing, wheezing, or wet coughs with no visible source nearby, obey these steps at once. 1. Conceal yourself immediately. Visibility is everything. Hide thoroughly. Noise is irrelevant. He cannot see well. 2. If he spots you, keep hiding. His ancient, decayed eyes are nearly blind. 3. Should he lock eyes on you, collapse to the ground, and fiend death, he may assume the 4th has already claimed you and move on. The 4th, death. He is the architect of the 4, the mightiest among them. Recent whispers name them collectively: the horsemen of the apocalypse. Famine, the 1st. War, the 2nd. Plague, the 3rd. And death, the 4th. Death perceives everything with terrible clarity. Sight, sound, even the frantic beating of your heart will portray you if it races too high. His abilities remain partly shrouded, but we know these. The fog, a sickly mist summoned by him. Seal every window and door the moment you see it. Breathing it in rots the flesh from within, turning victims into mindless thralls under his command. The undead puppets. He animates corpses, children, grown men and women, even figures designed to lure with desire, to seek out the living. They knock, call out, plead, or tempt. Never respond. Never open the door, no matter who or what seems to be outside. This warning will loop for as long as our signal holds. If loved ones sleep, rouse them now. Share these rules. Fortify your home. Barricade entrances. Seal openings. Stay silent and still. We might once have prayed for divine mercy, but even God fell before the united might of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Survive if you can. I'm a crime scene technician. There's one unbreakable rule in this line of work. When a landline starts ringing, you ignore it completely. My name is McCallie. At 52, I've devoted decades to wiping away the aftermath of humanity's darkest acts. I work for BioClean Solutions, specialists in what the industry calls biohazard remediation. In plain terms, we're the ones who mop up after the horror ends. Once the investigators pack up and the body is removed, we arrive to scrub away the gore. Blood splattered across rooms, fluids soaked into fabrics, bits of tissue clinging to the surfaces. Our goal is simple: restore the space so it's sellable again, letting grieving relatives pretend the violence never stained those walls. The pay is excellent because few people can stomach it. You have to train yourself to see a crimson spray not as evidence of suffering, but as organic material needing the right solvent. Emotional distance is non-negotiable. I stick to old school methods. No fancy gadgets, no automatic sprays, no digital forensic tools. Just buckets, strong cleaners, peroxide solutions, heavy-duty trash liners, and elbow grease. The quiet suits me. There's something almost mediative about methodically transforming a scene of violence back into sterile normalcy. Over the years, veterans share certain unspoken guidelines with newcomers, like grim folklore. Never pocket souvenirs. Avoid staring at family photos. They humanize the carnage too much. And the most ancient rule: if the landline rings, let it ring. Places marked by sudden, brutal death carry a lingering charge. The atmosphere thickens. Lights flicker, oddly. And old-fashioned phones, still common in some homes, sometimes receive calls from people unaware the resident is gone forever. Last Tuesday brought me to the Val's property, a grand, aging colonial house tucked at the end of a long, unpaved lane, hemmed in by towering eucalyptus that swallowed daylight. A robbery gone lethal 3 days earlier. The victim, an older woman named Helena, living by herself. The authorities had cleared out. No corpse remained, just the residue. I pulled my battered work van into the driveway. The property was unnaturally still. No wildlife sounds, only the faint rustle of leaves overhead. I suited up on the veranda. Full Tyvek coveralls, heavy gloves, steel-toed boots, and a sealed respirator mask with fresh filters. I resembled an intruder from another world. Inside, the home felt frozen in an earlier era. Dark oak pieces, thick drapes, ornate carpets. The air battled between old lavender polish and the sharp, coppery bite of dried blood. The violence had unfolded in the rear parlor, a room lined with books and dominated by a baby grand piano. I padded down the corridor, pushed open the pocket doors. Chaos greeted me. Sheet music littered the floor. A massive dark patch marred the light carpet. Edges crusted, but center still tacky. Scuff trails led from near the piano toward a shattered side window. I exhaled through the mask. Time to work. Standard procedure. Clear debris first. Broken glass. Excise ruined sections of the carpet. Then, treat the underlying floorboards with enzymes and bleach mixtures. I labored steadily for a couple of hours. Sunset Boulevard, orange across the walls, stretching shadows into claws. I knelt, scouring planks with a wire brush. When the cold hit, sharp, unnatural, like stepping into a meat locker. My suit's interior chilled instantly. I froze, senses on edge. The space looked empty, yet felt crowded. Dust particles hung motionless in the dying light. I glanced down at the boards I'd spent ages bleaching. The stain had returned. Vivid scarlet, wet, pulsing faintly, as though seeping upward from beneath the wood. I lurched back on my heels. No way. Then the ringing started. An old rotary phone. Black bakelite, heavy and vintage, sat on an end table by the piano. Its bell was harsh, metallic, cutting through the hush like an alarm. I stared at the revived blood, then at the phone. Rule: do not answer. But the house seemed to pause, expectant. The pressure in the room pressed against my ribs. What if it was important? A family member? The listing agent? Rationalizations clawed at the fear. I rose, approached. My gloved fingers shook as I lifted the handset on the fifth ring and pressed it to my ear beneath the mask straps. Hello? It emerged rough. Static crackled. Then a woman's voice, shaky, hushed, panic. They're outside, in the yard. Ice slid through me. Not a recording. She heard my inhale. Who's calling? I demanded. Help me, please. She rushed on. I peeked past the drapes. A man is standing out there, watching this room. I turned toward the window, the one I'd found smashed hours ago. Now the pane gleamed whole, mirror smooth, showing my mask, white suit silhouette back at me. "Ma'am," I said, fighting for steadiness. "Who are you? Where exactly are you?" "Helena," she choked out. "I'm hiding in here, behind the piano. I tried 911, but the line died. I dialed this number instead. Why did it take you forever to pick up?" Helena, the deceased, removed in a coroner's bag days prior. I glanced at the piano's shadow. Empty. I scrubbed there earlier. "Helena?" I tried again, stomach twisting. "You're not here anymore." "Don't say that," she snapped, voice crackling higher. "Quiet. He's approaching. He's enormous, dressed all in white." My reflection. White Tyvek, black mask lenses, yellow gloves. Grotesque, otherworldly. "What does he look like?" I asked, throat tight. Rubber face. No real eyes, just round glass ports, a hose from his mouth, and he's gripping something metallic, sharp." I looked at the still putty knife in my grip, glinting red-orange in the light. Understanding crashed in. This house didn't follow linear time. It looped, replaying the murder's final notes forever. My presence wasn't restoration. It was intrusion into the echo. "Helena, hear me out," I urged. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm the cleanup crew. I arrive after, from later." "You're insane," she cried. Her shout echoed twice, once through the receiver, once physically from the piano's corner, though nothing visible stood there. "He's lifting his arm. He's smashing the window." I reached instinctively toward the glass, to prove harmlessness, to connect. "Wait, no! No!" My fingertips brushed the pane. Glass erupted inward, but not from my touch. Shards tore through the empty space where my body should have stopped them, passing harmlessly as if I were vapor. I stumbled backward. The handset clattered. Daylight vanished. Night flooded in. Yet I could still see. Helena materialized. Real. Solid. Huddled behind the piano in a pale robe. White hair disheveled. Clutching a cordless phone. Eyes wide with terror. She stared at the now shattered window. At the intruder climbing through. Not me. A dark-clad figure. Hood up. Crowbar in hand. The actual murderer. I lay unseen on the floor, a phantom witness to the killing. I tried yelling, "Run!" Nothing emerged. Silent observer. He closed in. She bolted, stumbled. He seized her in the rug's center. The crowbar descended. Wet impacts. Once, twice, 3 times. Her final rattle. Then, snap. Day returned. Window broken as originally found. Phone back on cradle. Blood pool steaming anew in the middle of the floor. Fresh, immediate, eternal recurrent. Trembling, I gathered gear chaotically. Escape. Now. The music room door refused to budge when I twisted the knob. A voice spoke behind me, not from the phone. "It's pointless." I spun. A silhouette clung to the wall. Not furniture shadow. Feminine outline. Not Helena, exactly. The house's scar. The trauma's residue. Why wipe it away? It murmured inside my skull. You removed the evidence. Without the blood, I'm forgotten. I have to, I managed. For the family. To let them sell. To let them heal. Heal? A jagged chuckle. No healing here. Time curls. You've joined the rotation. Cleaner. The phone shrilled again. Restarting the plea. If I answered, the cycle would claim me too. Endless futile rescues. Endless failures. Endless stains. Pick it up, the shadow pressed. This round, perhaps you reach her first. Perhaps you change it. A cruel lure. Hope as eternal punishment. I snatched my chemical pill inside, raised it high, smashed it down onto the phone. Plastic and metal splintered. The bell choked off mid-note. Silence slammed back. Thick, offended. The wall shadow wavered, dissolved. The blood on the floor ceased moving. Coagulated, aged, became merely old discoloration. The door clicked open under my hand. I fled. Abandoned tools, half-cleaned surfaces, everything. In town, I parked outside a rundown tavern, still half-suited, down straight whiskey with unsteady hands. I never returned to the Vale's house. The agency phoned, irate, the job incomplete. They dispatched someone else. I begged them not to. Explained the place was broken, locked in torment. They scoffed, disconnected. Yesterday, I crossed paths with a former colleague. Asked about the replacement tech, a kid named Marcus. He grimaced. Marcus bailed, cracked completely. How? Found him inside days later, sitting in the music room, staring blankly. Injured? Not a scratch, but he clutched that shattered receiver to his ear, muttering over and over. What words? My friend shivered, took a long pull from his bottle. This time, I was so close. This time, I almost saved her. One more try. Just one more. I settled my tab and walked out. The resonance hasn't faded. It simply found a new voice to carry it. And whenever I'm alone in a quiet house, battling a stubborn mark and a phone begins to trill, I drop tools and bolt. Some calls, once you answer, never let you go. And that, dear listeners, brings a close to this Volume 4 of Fictional Bliss. To the rest of the membership, thank you so much for your dedication and devotion to the channel. If it weren't for you, this channel wouldn't exist, and I'd be sitting here reading to myself. And that's not pleasant, is it? So thank you so much. To everyone else, I hope you've enjoyed this collection of fictional stories. It's a part of me that I absolutely treasure. I try to at least release one of these a month. And this time I think I'm going to start releasing these at the end of the month. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for supporting this video. And as I always like to say, if you're sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed these collections. In the meantime, stay vigilant and please stay safe. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.